Well, we got some good news, and that is that I am feeling better, finally getting over my cold, and I did not have to take antibiotics, which is, always a very good thing. But it's turning to be a kind of weird week, and this is when I'm both glad that we are setting these more tangible goals, and then at the same time, it feels a bit weird right now. Things feel really off, and I think it has to do with just starting out the week being sick, and that kind of throwing off the whole thing, because we have a plan, but all the details are not worked out yet. And so the problem is that as we start sort of executing, right, and trying to figure out the day-to-day, it requires a certain level of energy. And it's energy that I didn't have because I was sick. And so it's been throwing me off. Today, so what happened today was, what happened today was that I'm trying to figure out what the easiest way to explain this is without having to give you like all the spiel, all the background information. But basically, because of how often I'm here in Argentina, I decided that it was a good idea to apply for sort of like a temporary residency, because there's a 90-day visa when you come as a tourist, but I'm usually here a little bit longer than that for the most part. And since, we're still trying to figure out like how much time we want to spend here versus just kind of elsewhere or traveling. And so, I decided that I wanted to apply, or we both decided we wanted to apply for Argentinian residency. And I've been waiting to be called for an interview to go and get my picture taken and my fingerprints and all that stuff. And yesterday I got the email that it was supposed to be today. So, and the other thing is that the guy who runs the ping pong class, it's sort of like a class, was sick today. And so last night also they sent out a text from the club saying that they weren't going to run the class today. So, and even if they were doing the class, I still couldn't have gone because I had to go to this interview. But it wasn't really an interview because they didn't really ask you anything. I had to go get fingerprinted and my picture taken for my residency card and all that stuff. And so I start to feel better. And again, if I had been able to get back to a normal, or I guess a more normal day today, that would have been great, because I could have sort of felt like I was getting into it, right? But then this happens, and it just sort of throws me off. And again, this shouldn't be a problem, but the fact that this new project feels so new, and I still haven't figured out like all the specifics and stuff, and I feel like I haven't been, like my mind hasn't been on like doing the day-to-day for a few days now this week. I don't know, I felt completely thrown off. And now I'm like back in that mentality of like, well, today's shot. And tomorrow's Friday and this week's shot. And Dorima wants to throw a party on Saturday, and so like there goes the weekend. Or at least that's how it feels. I'm trying not to let it get to my head in that way, but that's kind of what it feels like, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling with making the right decisions with food. I haven't really gotten on the scale, and we have goals this week. I mean, this week is week one, whether we like it or not, because that's sort of the importance of setting, for me, again, please keep in mind that these are all things that I'm trying to figure out for myself, what works for me. And the importance for me of having set sort of like a hard deadline with a specific date is extremely important, because I can't just push it back 1 week, which is something that I've done so many times in the past, and I think that you guys have done in the past as well. It's let's just push it back 1 week. And so regardless of what happens, the clock has started and we're moving. This week is week 1 and we're not off to the best start. Now, I'm hoping that this will also serve to show me, there's traffic and people start honking. It'll serve to show me and show, maybe someone out there who needs it, that, rocky beginnings are fine. They're okay. And I was watching a video this morning of someone who was saying, we're all human. And it's important to be able to recognize that humanity, that we don't have to be perfect. And it doesn't matter if we fall, it's just, all this sort of cliche stuff. The problem is not letting that one fall turn into weeks, and that's what I'm struggling with a little bit right now. And so I want to make sure that that's not the case. So I made a point today to be mindful of that and be mindful about it tomorrow. So since we were out running some errands and doing this thing, this appointment that I had, we made a point to go and get a bunch of pork bones so that I can make that bone broth again. Because I keep thinking, now that we want to start measuring things again. We want to be more mindful and more specific with the diet. Want to make sure that we're getting the proper nutrition. All of those things in a more mindful, more purposeful way. I'm coming up with ideas, right? And so, one of the ideas that I had was what we're going to try to apply tonight, which is, when in doubt, go nuts. As in, if you're having any doubts about what to eat, just eat some nuts. And these are the things that I'm trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to figure, how are we going to be able to continue to add knowledge and tools to our tool belt to help in more and more difficult situations. And so if I can get on board with some of these little tips and tricks and things, that they're not new. I'm not coming up with them. It's just a matter of implementing them, remembering that they exist. I mean, I've known about nuts. I think we all know about nuts. It's not like nuts. It's like a secret food that no one knows about. We all know that we can eat nuts. And, as long as we're making sure that we're staying within the calories, nuts are great. They're, very nutritious. And then the other thing is, the reason I got this idea is because one of those health food shops where I get the ghee and all that sort of more specialty stuff for cooking. They have a bunch of different nuts and granolas and stuff. And so they had a little trail mix that didn't have any peanuts. So it's cashews and walnuts and almonds. And then you got golden raisins and regular raisins. And I was thinking, well, are the raisins good? I mean, they do have fiber and some vitamins. And then I start reading about it and it says but they're also a little bit high in sugar and the carbs and blah, 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 this and that. And so again, we're trying to be mindful and be informed so that we can be making informed decisions, because we just don't know. Something else that I thought it was interesting is that for the longest, let me back up a little bit, sorry. Last time I got my blood work done, my lipids weren't great. My cholesterol and triglycerides were a little high, my HDL was low, my LDL was high. And so one of the ways that I've always known to improve, to try to improve that, is to have more omega-3 fats in your diet, right? So certain nuts and certain fish. But if you can't get it from diet alone, and that, it's tricky, I don't eat as much fish as I would like. Interestingly enough, there's not a lot of fish here. Most of the fish is frozen, and I honestly don't know like where it comes from. And so they always emphasize like, wild caught salmon and like sardines and stuff like that. And it's not as easy to come by those foods here. But anyway, so I've always known like if you can't get it from your diet, then you should supplement. And you supplement with fish oil. Well, then fucking yesterday, I'm reading an article and I'm doing the fucking doom scroll in the news app. And there's an article about how it turns out, some studies have found that maybe fish oil capsules maybe aren't as good, and in fact they're probably bad for a lot of people. And there's also worrying about the quality of the fish oil. And then I was also looking at what kind of supplementation some people were suggesting, and then looking at the fish oil that I got here in Argentina that is ridiculously expensive, or maybe it's not. I haven't bought fish oil in the States in a while, and it just seemed expensive. It was like $18 for 30 capsules. So maybe I'm wrong. But then I'm looking at the amount of like EPA and DHA, which are the compounds that you're supposed to be ingesting, and they were like ridiculously low compared to like what I'm supposed to be getting. So even if I'm spending a lot of money for these fish oil capsules, they don't even have the amount that I would need, or that technically that I should be taking. And then it turns out they might not be like the best quality because I can't trace it. The point of it is that I don't even know what the point is. I feel like I got lost. We have to be mindful, and then at the same time it's hard to be mindful. And I've been this fish oil thing has been stuck in my mind, and I appreciate what you guys are getting ready to post in the comments right now, because I really do appreciate it. But the reason I say this is not to just bitch about it. It's just to highlight the difficulty of figuring out what we should do when we're trying to do something like this, because it's so easy to go wrong. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed with the amount of information. Not just the amount of information, but the amount of contradicting information that there's out there. And so now I don't know. I mean, I'm left in a place where like, is fish oil okay to take, or maybe it isn't? And so then the sort of the light at the end of the tunnel that I see is the scientific method. And just hear me out, because I know this might feel a little bit random, but the scientific method is, let's just test it out. Let's test and measure and see how we feel, and how if it's working. And so I didn't know this, but the article that was talking about this mentioned that you can get like little blood tests that you can get at home in the US. I don't know if you can do it here, but little tests that you can get at home, and you do like a little finger prick, and it'll test your omega-3s, and that way you know how you need to adjust your diet. And then maybe we try to adjust it with actually trying to eat foods that are rich in omega-3s, as opposed to maybe just trying to get it through supplementation. And so that's sort of the light that I see at the end of the tunnel. And perhaps this is not the first thing that we should be worrying about, but and I don't know if any doctors out there. I don't know. I was gonna say like I need to talk to my siblings, but it just they're not. This is not their field. So maybe there are things that we should be focusing on first. But again, I'm also trying to figure out how to make this work emotionally, so that I can get my head on board. All of these things, and maybe I am overcomplicating it a little bit, but it is okay to overcomplicate things if that's what your brain needs. That's what my brain needs. At least that's what I feel it needs. Because I've tried the other ways in the past, trying to be a little more relaxed, trying, just be a little more mindful. You're doing too much. Just try to be a little more mindful, and it doesn't stick. And it doesn't matter, if we're making it simple or complicated, if it doesn't work. If complicated doesn't work for you, then making it simple perhaps might work. Maybe it's also having an open mind to experiment and try to figure out what works for you at the stage that you're in. And it's okay to flip-flop. It's okay to want to be vegan for a week if that helps you get through that week, and then be a carnivore for the next week. All of these things, they're okay. And there's always going to be people who are going to tell you that you're doing it wrong. It happens to me here all the time. I mean, most of you guys are so encouraging, but you get plenty of people just pointing out how you're doing it wrong. And we could be doing it wrong, and the only real way to know is to be mindful of what we're doing. That's the hardest part. Be mindful of what we're doing, and then see how we can measure what progress looks like. And that's why, to me, having these different ways to measure things is the way to go, because it's reassuring that we're headed in the right direction. So we're going to be trying to get on the scale. I haven't gotten on the scale, but I'm I'm getting ready for it. And whatever ends up, if I get on the scale just once this week, that'll be the average for the week, because that's all the data that I have, and we'll have to go with that. And that'll be the first data point that goes into the thing that I'm preparing for you guys. But again, it's about figuring out the things that, and you guys have now seen it, and yes, it's a little embarrassing because I feel like now I've been all over the place. Like I started out being so focused, and I had my shakes, and fuck yeah, we're gonna do this, and like I don't know, like maybe I've tried not to be too arrogant about this, but like you get like that, like I'm prepared, I'm ready to do this, and then I don't know, just like what's it, Mike Tyson saying that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Yes. I got punched in the mouth, and everything went out the window. And I feel like I've been flailing ever since, just trying to figure it out. And we're getting there. We're getting there. And so I keep preparing mentally, because at the end of the day, that's the main part of this. It's not the diet, it's not the exercise, but it's the mindset to be able to do the things that we need to do and to make better decisions and to have an open mind, be able to experiment, and be able to be willing to measure, and be willing to understand that whatever it is that we're trying might not always work. Might work for right now, might not at some point. And having that open mind, be that open to change, and be open to the fact that a specific approach, whether you like it or not, might not work for you. And we might have to change it, and we might have to switch it up. And trust me, I'm not happy about that. I wish that it was like a very simple thing and boom, that's it. But that's not how bodies work. This is why these sort of like mass adoption diet things don't work, because we're all so different. I want to get back to, and like maybe I'll make like a point of doing it and talking to you guys about it next week. But last year, I think it was last year, maybe earlier this year. I think it was last year. I read a book titled Outlive by a doctor named Peter Attia. You guys probably know it. He's becoming pretty big. And I don't remember all the specifics of the book, but I feel like I want to reread it again. It seemed to me like there was a lot of common sense, a very common sense approach to health, to improving your health span. Not just your longevity, not just like living longer, but actually being healthier. And I don't know, I remember it spoke to me. And I remember when I read it, I never heard of the guy, I never really heard of the book, and it was recommended to me maybe in the Audible app or something. But it was recommended to me, and ever since now I remember talking to people about it, and no one heard of him. And like now he's popping up everywhere. And so I think I might want to reread the book and see what we can apply to what we're trying to do here. But the point is, I don't know what the point is. I'm just rambling at this point. But again, I feel off. I feel like things are off right now, and I need to get back to the right mindset, and I'm working on it. But again, being sick this week threw me off, and then today had this thing that was unmovable. I had to go do it, and so I'm hoping that tomorrow we make some bone broth, we do our workout, we try to have, a decent weekend, and then, we keep going. We keep going, we keep measuring, we keep putting all the pieces together, start building, and basically like start building as we're going, as opposed to what I did at the beginning before February. There was, a few months of preparation. And then when everything was set, I started going, and it works, but it only works up until a certain extent because, again, that we need to be a little more flexible, a little more willing to change and adapt. And so that is what we'll continue to do. Thank you guys again for hanging out with me. It's interesting, if anything, it is interesting to see all of these things. Like forcing myself to document this means that I'm forcing myself to be more aware, more self-aware of my emotions and the processes that your head goes through as we're doing this. And if anything, it's interesting. I've heard from some of you guys and how helpful it is and how relatable it is. It's exactly the reason why I'm doing it. I have found I've had a difficult time relating to some of the content out there about weight loss and exercise, and it's difficult to relate because for the most part we're either seeing a highlight reel, which is great, and I think that can really work for some people. Like that, the motivation of seeing someone go after it day after day. But at the same time, for me, it is really helpful to see the failings, and not in like a Schadenfreude type thing where I'm happy that someone else is failing, but just you guys have said it better than me. Seeing that someone else is struggling with the same things makes me feel like I'm not alone. And at the end of the day, this is all there is. Somebody else also said, it feels like someone to go through it with when people around you and in real life, this is real life, but in physical person or not. And so in that way, we're going through it together. We're sharing our struggles and just continuing to try to figure it out. And as long as we're here, we're not done yet. Even if things are not moving at the pace that we want, and things are not happening as quickly as we want, and it's certainly not a perfect road, a perfect journey, path, Camino. As long as we're here, we're here. We're still at it. We're still trying. We haven't given up, and that's basically the point. We are not giving up. We have started to lose weight for the last time, and we're going to keep going until this thing sticks, and it's going to stick. We're making some real changes, and it's going to stick. It just takes time and effort, and it's slow goings. All right. Thank you, guys. Love you. I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to make some bone broth.